we're going to go ahead and get started with some prayer. And then we'll go into, I don't have it clicked on the right thing. And then we'll go into worship when we're done with prayer.
Amen. For the cleansing power, are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Oh, are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you walking daily by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crucified? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Oh, are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? When the bridegroom cometh, will your robes be white? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Will your soul be ready for the mansion's bride and be washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Oh, are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man, you were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, We're so thankful that you thought of us, Jesus.
Okay, if you have any questions, don't forget to ask them by August 27th. That is the Wednesday after our 100-year anniversary. Okay, so just to kind of recap what we looked at, we've been looking at witchcraft. That sounds creepy when you say it like that. We looked at these 3 points. There's no single set of beliefs for either witchcraft or Wiccanism. Number 2, witchcraft is strongly tied to sex, death, and darkness. Number 3, there are many modern Christians who call themselves witches. And just in case I didn't mention it all last week, witches are both male and female, as Wiccans are also male and female. I don't know if I specified that last week, but it is not gender specific. Okay, so we'll carry on with tonight. We'll get started by watching a video, and then we will return to our list of 10 things with looking at 5 and 6 on the list, and then... But I do want to remind you guys that some of these things will apply more broadly than others, and not all the things that we hit on here is necessarily true of every single witch or Wiccan. It's not like one thing is true for everything. So, okay, I'll go start the video, and then we'll discuss.
Very carefully if they know what they're doing. They use the power of the divine. They work guided by it. Wiccans cast spells very carefully if they know what they're doing. They use the power of the divine. They work guided by it. I always suggest that people do a little divination before they undertake spell casting, that they ask if it's appropriate to cast the spell, and that they ask for guidance in casting the spell so that they get information. The symbols that come up will help you to determine which element you want to work with, whether you want to work with air or fire or water or earth or a combination of them. And if you're given advice not to do it, take the advice. If you're going to go ahead, my recommendation in casting any kind of a spell is while you want to have a specific purpose, a goal in mind, an intent, the risk with all spells is that we tap into our unconscious, and we do it unconsciously. And there are all kinds of complications dwelling down there. Nothing evil, nothing dire, but complications, the things that we have yet to learn about ourselves. And that is, in fact, one of the points of a spell not working out or not working out as you intend. It's an opportunity to learn something you needed to learn about yourself. Okay. So the safeguard in dealing with these unknown unconscious forces that can influence the outcome of a spell is by using the sacred as your partner. One way is by asking advice, by using divination, by engaging in dialogue with the divine. The other way is an almost foolproof method that I really love, which is to leave a certain space. I always do this when I do any kind of ritual. I never overscript. And when you do a spell, You never overscript. You always leave a space for the divine to express itself in the outcome of the event. So if you need transportation to get to work, I think we were talking about that before, if you need transportation to get to work, you don't ask for a Ferrari, you ask for transportation. If you need a new apartment, you don't ask for, the penthouse on Park Avenue, you ask for a new home. You trust the universe to help you in finding the thing that's right for you at the time that you cast the spell. And the spell is not a pleading with a divinity that is greater than you and looking down on you because you're weak and helpless. In fact, it's a partnership. So you must go to the indwelling divinity, the well of your own gifts, and bring that out creatively. That's what a spell is. It is this work of art. You can go to a book and copy a spell and follow it precisely, but we're not dealing with a mechanical universe. You're living within a living, conscious, sacred universe, and so you need to approach it as such. And that's the essence of casting a successful spell, that you respect the sacred universe, you invoke it as your partner, you ask for its guidance, you work with its energy, and you trust it to provide the outcome that's best for you. And that's what you ask for in a spell. Whatever the topic of the spell is, you ask for the best outcome. And that's a great way to cast a great spell.
So that was a practicing Wiccan, kind of just walking through the basics of casting a spell. A few things I want to draw attention to throughout the thing from the video. She said very specifically that if you're warned not to, then don't, which is kind of, I guess, humorous to me because Christianity constantly warns people about this kind of stuff and they ignore that. The Bible condemns it and they ignore that. So I guess it's, well, unless it's something you don't want to hear, and then you don't have to ignore it, I guess. I don't know. Then the other thing is that notice her evident philosophy that comes out all throughout the video, not just with her beliefs in Wiccanism. I'm talking about her general philosophy as far as how she talked about rituals as though they're not as like a silly prayer where you're reaching out to some greater divinity than yourself. So she had this like constant snideness to her when she was saying these different things. And she very clearly said, there is no evil in you. You remember how she said that? It's little comments that she made so confidently. It's like when your toddler is telling you something that's super duper wrong, but like they're super confident when they're telling you about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is. It's like, oh, I don't think that's right, buddy. But okay, it's kind of like that. She's saying these things that she's really confident about. But it's like, well, okay, yeah, but if we look at the example of humanity around us, we see proof that evil is in us and under our consciousness. And so, yes, if you're delving around in your subconscious, then yeah, you're going to find something evil. I mean, don't forget that Hitler was a human, not an alien or some reptilian creature or something. And then, obviously, there's no equality with the divine. I think that kind of goes without being said. She said in there to trust the universe. Did I put this on there? She said to trust the universe. And I think some basic questions are really helpful in these kind of situations. Why trust the universe? Is it a person or a thing that we should trust it? And where do you base that off of? Because my scientific analysis of the universe tells me that it is a thing that has no consciousness to it, and that it has age to it, which means it had a point of origin. That's what science shows me, and I don't really get where she's basing this idea of talking about the universe as though it's something that needs to be almost like swooned or romanced. But also, she has this idea that basically to share intimate details with the universe. Think about how stupid this is. Trust a spirit that you know nothing about. That doesn't sound like a very good idea, does it? So you're going to do this witchcraft, and you're just going to trust in the goodness of this, whatever it is. You don't even know what it is. You're just going to trust its goodness, and you're going to listen to it and share intimacy with it. Why does that sound like a good idea? It's not like God. I mean, I know that God is a spirit, but it's not like that, because God has revealed himself to us. This spirit, we're saying we don't know who it is. It's just some divine essence or energy, and we're going to just blindly trust it. That does not sound like a good idea. But if it isn't a higher power, why, oh why, ask anything of it? She says constantly it's not something that's higher than us, it's this divine thing she's talking about basically the goddess or the energy, right? And she talks about it as though it's not some higher divinity, some higher power that we have to pray to. We're equal with it, we're like co-workers with it. And I get what she's saying, I understand what she's saying. What I don't understand is, if it's not any higher than us, why are we asking anything from it? See what I mean? That doesn't make sense at all. But then it goes even worse than that, because if we are divine, then there is no divine. Let me break this down into 5 basic steps, okay? If it is only us, if it's only the divine in us like she's talking about, then there's 5 things that logically follow. Number 1, we don't have to leave space for it because it is us. She said to leave space for this divine thing, this energy, whatever. You don't have to do that because it's part of us. She said the divine is in us. Remember that? So you've got a contradiction right there. Number 2, we don't have to enter into dialogue with it, because any benefit that can be conjured by entering into dialogue with this thing, this universe, is basically only benefited by us processing our own thoughts, because we are the divine. That doesn't make sense. Number 3, if it is only the divine in us, then ultimately that means that there is no danger in these spells. But witches and Wiccans both agree that these things are dangerous. How in the world can they be dangerous if we ourselves are part of the divine? Like that doesn't follow. It doesn't track. The testimony of spells to ourself is that we are not part of the divine. If we were part of the divine, we could cast spells and it wouldn't be a problem. So then fourth off, if we are part of the divine, then ultimately there is no divine. At best, there's no right and wrong and no moral true divinity. But at worst, then there is no divine. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but no, yeah, I'll just say that now. The idea of divine means something other, something higher. So if we're saying we're the divine, then we need something else. And that takes us to an argument of definitions. We'll get to that in a second. And fifth off, the logical conclusion of that is that the divine really is nothing special. It's nothing special because it's you and me. It's Hitler. It's all of us. It's the bully at school. It's the stillborn child. It's all of us. The divine is all of us. And does that really fit with the basic knowledge of our conscience? No. Does it fit with the world around us? No. So what happens here, if you elevate yourself to the divine, you degrade the divine to the human. So now we're both even, okay? And then you're denying a higher power above that. Now that sounds to her like she's solved the problem, but there's 2 things from that. First off, in essence, she's reached the same conclusion as an atheist. You are elevated, God is reduced, there is no higher power. An atheist. Like, that's the exact same conclusion. Divine must, by its very definition, be higher. That's the definition of a divinity. So, and then second off, she's removed the definition of divine, which requires a new word to mean that what divine already means now. See what I mean? You can call us divine. You can do that. But now, what divine means is lost, and we need a new word to be invented to take the place of what we use now. See what I mean? That other thing. You follow what I'm saying? And I'll give you 2 examples that I think really hit the nail on the head here. The first is, let's say a Pinto is racing a Ferrari. A Pinto is that ugly green car there. Pretty much anyone older than 30 has probably seen or driven one. They're terrible cars. Anyways, they're always broken down on the side of the road. Let's just say a Pinto is racing a Ferrari. Okay, let's just say that. And now we can say, well, hold on, though, it was a really nice Pinto. Okay, but it's still not a Ferrari. Well, my Pinto is like a Porsche. Okay, but it's still not a Ferrari. Doesn't matter how you define that Pinto, it's still going to be a Pinto, and it's still not going to be a Ferrari. Divinity would be the Ferrari in that situation, and the Pinto would be humanity. It doesn't matter if you redefine it, it's still not that thing. A second example is actually from baseball. Let's say you take home plate and you move it to first base. Have you actually fixed anything? No. You still have to go around back to home plate. You just move where home plate is. You can redefine it, but you're still left with the same problem. You've just moved the equation further down. That's it. You've added another zero into the equation. That's it. So all she really did is she redefined human and human nature, calling it divine, but in so doing, she's redefined divinity. And now we need a new word for God, or the divine, whatever you want to call it. And we're still not that other thing, whether it be the Ferrari or the trying to get rid of first plate. And I hope you see what I'm saying here. She really has not resolved the issue. She just simply moved it further down. It's like when people say, there's no God because the Big Bang happened through some and so. Okay, yeah, but then what caused that? Like you just moved in, you added another step, but you didn't answer the final problem. Moving on from there, she said there that divination, and a lot of times Wiccans will say this. I'm not sure exactly what they base it on. Maybe in the coming weeks I'll be able to figure it out. But basically the argument is that divination is like the stepping stone to spells. So you seek knowledge through signs and practices like tarot cards. That's divination. And they'll talk about the way that it's the safer way to spells. You don't start out with spells. Never start with spells. Do divination, and then you work your way to spells. And I don't really know what that's based off of. An interesting thought, though, before I go any further, that's what I said. I just forgot to click it. Redefining words forces new words. Okay. A little thing I want to point out here is something that I've actually heard a couple pastors teaching on, and I'm not going to preach their whole sermons for them, but I want to bring these things up, just kind of an interesting thought, and then we'll return back to our list. But Christians will oftentimes attack people for the whole casting spells thing, and I don't necessarily think that they're wrong. I mean, let me say that differently. I don't think that they're wrong in condemning spells. I do think that they might be wrong in how they approach the person who casts spells. And this is what I'm getting at. Christians will oftentimes loudly condemn the sinful and wicked and demonic in other people, and then they'll do something very similar like this. They'll use their mouths to curse others. James says it like this: from our mouths comes blessings and curses, and these things shouldn't be. So here we are casting spells in the form of cursing people, but then we want to blame them. And once again, the issue is not we should be casting spells. No. The issue is that, yeah, we definitely shouldn't be casting spells, but we also shouldn't be cursing our neighbors. And then a second example of this, which I never hear pastors talking about nowadays, I have no idea why, but the Bible talks about the way that being rebellious and prideful actually are things that repel God, and they're equal to witchcraft. James, for instance, says that God rejects the proud but gives grace to the humble. So that's something that if you're prideful, if you lift yourself up against God, you got this haughty attitude, God's going to literally push you away. That's the same thing that happens with witchcraft. It's like a nasty smell in God's face. And then the second thing is 1 Samuel talks about when the way that Samuel's talking to King Saul, and he says that rebellion is as of witchcraft. That means that it's in the same tier of sin. It's the same quality of a thing. So yes, our words and our actions and our heart does matter. In witchcraft, they constantly teach and talk about this, the way that your intent matters. And I would say that that has some truth in it. As Christians, what our words are and our actions, our heart, it does matter. I've said this since I got here. It matters the attitude of how you do things, right? If I do something with a nasty little attitude, it doesn't matter if I'm faithful to it. I've got a nasty little attitude. It's way better to have somebody with a good attitude than it is to have somebody with a terrible attitude. And I've said that since I got here. So let's move on to number 4. Oh, I guess we should. I have notes here written, because I'm too stupid if I don't have a note. Okay, do you guys have any questions or comments about the observation from the video, or you have your own little observations or questions about the video? We're good? Okay, so I guess we can go to 4. Number 4, and we're only going to do 4 and 5 tonight. Witches may use tools, but they don't have to use tools. Once again, going back to what I said last week, a lot of people's knowledge of witchcraft, unfortunately, comes from TV, which leaves us thinking that that's kind of what it looks like. But that's not what it looks like at all. Staffs and wands, they can be used, okay? I'm not going to lie to you, they can be used. For instance, water witching basically uses a stick as a staff. But when they are used, the idea of using a wand or a staff is that you are focusing your energy or your intent on something, okay? It's not something you're going to see most witches walking around with staffs or wands. Yeah, I guess some of them might sometimes walk around with a staff or a wand, but most of the times you're not going to see that happen. They're going to use it maybe more in their spells and that kind of stuff. And they're not going to necessarily use them all the time. A lot of times they'll only use them for specific reasons. But they will not have fireballs coming out of them like you see on TV. These kinds of silly things. That's not really what it is. And also another little silly thing that sometimes people believe that I have to just kind of mention it. On video games, you'll have like enchanted artifacts, right? You'll have like a staff that you shoot spells at somebody. That's not. There's no inherent magic in a staff. It's a piece of wood. Okay. Obviously, let's not be silly about this. There are some contrasts here with Christianity. I think the first contrast is in the use of tools, because witches and actually a lot of the different cults and occultic people are really into this idea of using different tools. And we looked at all those different things, like the tarot cards and the crystals and all those different things, right? Well, in Christianity, we are not restrained in these things. We're not restrained by them. And what I mean by that is, if we have nothing, we have God. We don't have to have a certain thing to pray, to trust in the Lord. We don't have to have something. We don't have to do something a certain way, dress a certain way, or cast a certain spell, say the perfect prayer, do the perfect things, sprinkle some holy crystal. We don't have to do those kinds of things. If we have nothing, if we are naked, we can still seek the Lord with all of our heart. There's nothing on this earth that anybody can ever take from us that will somehow remove us. But with witchcraft, they don't have that same confidence. Now, some people nowadays, unfortunately, see the Bible kind of as a wand. They won't memorize the words. They won't study the Word of God. They won't meditate on the Word of God. But they'll have this book that they keep dusted off. They'll never stack another book on top of it to show it respect, and they'll hold it close to their chest. They'll oh, I'm so happy I haven't, but they'll never read it. Well, what good does that do? They'll treat it just like a magic wand, but they won't actually gain any value from it because the words are staying in the book. So anyways, the second, I think, contrast, I think, would be with the thought of the energy itself. And what I mean by that is, the way that the wand directs the energy. For us as Christians, our intentions and our motives don't have to be perfect. I know that I just said the thing about, our hearts and our actions. I know I just said those things do matter. But on the flip side of that, they don't have to be perfect. Rather, we have to trust in a perfect God with our imperfections. That doesn't mean that we stand in arrogant, I'm going to keep holding on to this sin because it's my favorite sin. But at the same side, I guess I could say the flip side of that, we also don't have to be perfect in order for God to listen to us. And I think that's, good. Paul and Job both kind of said the same kind of thing. Job said it like this: naked I came into this world, naked I will leave it. Paul said something very similar. He said, I brought nothing and I'll take nothing out when I leave. Basically the same thing that they're saying. The idea of this whole energy and tools, it's nothing. Esther was scared, and she still did the Lord's will. A random father asked Jesus to heal while struggling with his disbelief. He said, hey, yes, I believe, but help my unbelief. Mary didn't even understand how she could have a baby when she had never even had sex, but she still trusted in the Lord with all of her heart, and God used her and blessed her for it. Moses prayed when he was very angry. All throughout the Bible, we see people praying and obeying the Lord without perfect I don't know how else to say it, without perfection. And God still heard because God is faithful and just. So there is kind of two sides of this. Any questions or comments about the fourth point, which was witches might use tools? Okay. Takes us to the fifth one. Spells are not like on TV. We showed that video, which I think kind of started to introduce this to you. I was going to play a video that aired on one of those good morning shows. I forget what it's called. They're all basically the same. The two people talking in the morning show starts around like 6 or 8 in the morning or some nonsense. I never watch them. And there's the guy host and the girl host, and they talk about a bunch of stuff that I just don't even care about, and then they'll probably say something about the weather, and then they'll be drinking their coffee. But I decided against it because, I just didn't feel good about it. And when I don't feel good about it, I don't. Problem solved. But, okay. I did show you this one, though, and she talks about spells. And spells are not like on TV. If you watch movies like Harry Potter, you're going to see them say these Latin words. And these Latin words are going to somehow cause the thing to happen. But that's not really how it works. They don't just say a random dead language word and it causes something. If you watch Lord of the Rings, they're going to speak Old Elvish. That's also not going to do anything, okay? Now, some spells can be in older languages, and some people think that there are maybe power to certain, saying a certain spell in a certain language, but there's nothing inherent about Latin, for instance. Binding spells and those kinds of things might use a single language for that spell individually, but it's not like on movies, not random words. In spells, how they actually work, you use certain things to draw and bind, like I talked about circles of salt, for instance. We talked about how sometimes they'll use different plants or natural things, I can't think of anything right now, like maybe a mushroom or a certain flower or something, rocks, those kinds of things. Crystals, anything really. They can use these different things to end their spells, to do the little thing. And they use these different things that they get together, and they'll typically say something. But a lot of times you'll hear them say, and this is extremely important to the witch and the Wiccan both, that it has more to do with the intention of your basically where you're directing your energy, the intention of the spell, more so than the precision of the words. In fact, in the video, she was talking about the way that some spells are like you memorize them, but then other ones you just kind of say whatever you want. Witches and Wiccans are usually female-led, and they oftentimes focus on the belief in the goddess. If you notice on her table, she had what looked like a female goddess statue. There was that white thing in the middle. And it also is very reminiscent of the Shira poles in the Old Testament. We'll probably come back to that some other time, maybe on a Sunday or something. When you are casting spells, you say certain things, which I already said can be memorized or free flow. It doesn't really matter. Placement of the spell or the ritual is significant to some. To other people, it doesn't really matter. So I guess it just depends on your own personal preference. Magic can be dangerous, they admit, but if done incorrectly or with bad intentions, that is. So I will give you an example of a spell here in just a minute, and I'll kind of keep it brief and not elaborate too strongly on it, because there's no reason to get real specific on these things. The difference between a spell and a ritual, I brought this up before, and I didn't really know how to articulate it. Well, I looked it up just to kind of help you guys. A spell is a focused act of will, often involving specific words, actions, or objects intended to create a desired outcome. Rituals, on the other hand, are a more structured and often symbolic series of actions performed with intent, so that part's very similar, which may or may not include a spell or part of its components. Essentially, rituals can encompass spells, but also include other ceremonial practices besides spells. So, if that helps. Think of it like rituals being this big circle and a spell is like a small circle in that big circle. That kind of, like I said, it's really hard to to see the difference. I mean, I'm sure to a witch or a Wiccan it might be like, oh, it's super obvious. But to me, I went around with this thing and around it. I mean, you guys saw how I struggled last week to try and explain this thing. I still don't know. This is how I had to write somebody else's definition down because I don't know what I'm talking about. There's some kind of a difference between them, and I'm sure if you've got a really good head on your shoulders, you'll be able to figure it out, but I cannot. So, moving on from there. An example of a spell, I'll mention the one that was on that morning show without giving the details of it or showing it. But basically, they had a group of women who had staffs, if you'll believe it. And it was a Halloween edition of the morning show, so they went there, in like a get up to make it more Halloween festive or whatever they were doing. And so they had a cauldron set up. I was a little surprised by that. They had a cauldron set up, and it's just I've never actually seen a real life witch, use a cauldron. I thought that was only in the movies, so I was like, oh look, they do still use cauldrons. How about that? But anyways, and they got there's about 8 of them. They got in a circle around the black cauldron. They got the 2 hosts of the show up to go up with them. And the people on the show, the hosts, they said, okay, so we would like you to cast a spell for us to have a white Christmas. So they just basically said some words, it's like they were talking into the air, basically, asking by these certain elements, and they listed 3 elements for the thing that they wanted, and then the woman picked up and started saying something along it, and then they all threw an ice cube in the cauldron, and then they were done. See, it doesn't have to be anything real elaborate, it doesn't have to be anything real, but the spells in real life are a lot different than they are on TV, is what I'm getting at. Now, Reddit user who has been deleted said this: whatever you send out, speaking about spells, these Reddit users are all talking about spells. Whatever you send out comes back to you times 3. I want to really get that precise. Times 3. Keep that in mind anytime you feel like revenge. Cursing someone curses you too. Stay with white positive magic. Don't wish for someone hurt. Wish to be protected from them. Simply don't try to cause harm to others. Trying to get around it with something like, they get what they deserve, doesn't work, at least not the way you think it will. So 3 points I want to make about this. When you cast a spell, it does still drain you. Casting spells does drain you. And when you cast a cursing spell, it really drains you. It can actually cause a lot of sickness. And they'll talk about it in ways like this. Like, it's okay as long as you do white magic, it's going to be okay. But that's just not true. It does still drain you. So if white magic is all good and flowery and rosy, how come it still causes you to get drained? Curses may give immediate trouble, but even white magic brings trouble in God's judgment. Second point, don't mistake God's patience for his acceptance. And Christians do this too. We struggle with our sin, and we think we start kind of trying accepting it into our lives sometimes. And, so whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, don't mistake God's patience for acceptance. And the third point I want to make is many Christians use prayer as a witch uses spells. And that's just something, I won't really elaborate too much on that, but some of these things that this Reddit user said kind of reminded me of how sometimes when I'm talking to Christians, they'll say something similar. Right here, especially on this part where it says, don't trying to get around it with something like, well, they get what they deserve. Just some of the things that they say in there, I've actually heard Christians say things that are eerily similar. This Reddit user's name was also deleted. Believe in what you're doing. And these are direct, the misspellings I left in because they are direct quotes. None of these have been edited by myself. Believe in what you're doing, make sure you desire to do what you're doing, and follow your intuition about what you're doing. I feel like I just listened to a speech by Kamala Harris. That was very confusing. So if you're really smart, you probably figured that out. When people talk like this, I just find it so frustrating because it's like tripping over logs in your mind. Believe in what you're doing. Okay, I got that one. You're doing something and you're believing in it. Got it. That's talking about your intent. Make sure you desire to do what you're doing. Okay, all right. You're wanting to do the thing. And then follow your intuition about what you're doing. Okay, so when you're doing the thing that you actually want to do, that you're believing in, you're also being intuitive about it. Got it. I'm not sure how the last one fits in, but okay. This by Reddit user Ming Xinghai. So think about what it is you want to manifest, which a lot of Christians actually teach this right now anyways, the whole manifesting things in prayer. And look up an herb or a stone or incense or candle you want to include in the spell. Some spells don't use tools at all. Look up the days of the week and what planet corresponds with it, because evidently that has something to do with it. Belief is one of the most powerful things you have, so have faith in your power. Boy, what a discouraging way to look at it. Yeesh. I find this belief system extremely exhausting and tiring and not very affirming at all. If I just simply believe, it's like believing in Santa Claus, right? Well, if I believe him, he'll leave Christmas presents under my tree. Unless you don't have a fireplace. Belief is one of the most powerful things you have, so have faith in your power. I also suggest practicing visualization. If that's all it took, don't you think that no parent would ever lose their kid? I mean, what kind of stupidity? What moron comes up with this kind of stuff? Well, I just didn't believe hard enough for my kid not to die. Oh, so it was my fault that my kid died. That's very affirming. Hooray! I'm a great parent. Broken record here. Learn divination first. See, again, this person with the divination first. Always get a handle on divination to guide you first. Don't just jump the gun by casting spells. This is how people really themselves overs. And yes, they did spell overs. Love and hate and love transmutate on the same spectrum. I don't think transmutate means what they think it means, but I get the idea of what they're trying to say, I think. They're saying those emotions are on equal wavelengths, basically. Anyways, so you can kind of see how these different people talk about the things that they themselves practice. These are all practicing Wiccans and witches. Any questions about any of this? We're going to close off there for tonight because I didn't really want to go too long. So any questions on this? No?
Generic. It's just the generic, and it doesn't add up, and it's not nearly as good. It's like the difference between like real mayonnaise and Walmart brand mayonnaise. It just doesn't work. It just isn't. It just doesn't add up.
So that's something we can say now. Hey, you're the generic.
It is. It just is so generic.
Had to be there.
It just tries to parallel, but it doesn't.
No.
When you parallel something, you go straight with it, and this is like this, all the way up and down. And you got to do this and something else around, and make sure you do this.
No. It's like when you buy those off-brand toys and they break within a week. Yeah. But they look really nice. Yeah. Yeah, there was something I was going to add on to that. But, yeah. A swing and a miss. Anybody else want to have a question or comment on this? Go ahead. Yeah. So you said that this person does claim to be Christian. So we're not talking about a pagan. We're talking about a Christian. Okay. The thing that pops in my head, and we can get to the Greek or whatever, but let's keep it just real simple here. And I wonder what she would say about that story where the woman is demon possessed and the disciples can't cast the demon out, and they're very bothered by this and confused by it. And then Jesus casts the demon out and says, it doesn't come out except by fasting. That kind of seems to be implying that there's kind of like an ongoing thing that would happen from it. I mean, what do you think? I mean, doesn't that kind of seem like if they were just visualizing, like how it, you get what I'm saying? I don't see Jesus saying anything about visualizing. Are there any verses that she specifically brings up that tell us to just visualize it? Hmm. Oh, yeah. Well. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. So two things specifically that Jesus said, and I didn't want to start here, but I'll end here instead, is Jesus tells in Luke, I believe it's 18:1. Sounds right. Then he says about, he's told this parable so his disciples would keep on praying and not lose hope. And then he tells another parable which specifically teaches us to pray and ask something continually. And that's a woman who is trying to go and get justice from the judge, who is a wicked man, and he doesn't care. And she still is able to get him to give her justice, even though he doesn't care about what people have to say and he has no fear of God. She still is able to, just because he's tired of listening to her. She nags him and nags him and nags him and nags him until he's finally just like, fine, just that she'll leave me alone. She's going to destroy me. And I think that's a very obvious verse. I mean, because he talks about how much more will my Father give justice to those who ask. And I don't see any biblical examples of ask one time and then never ask it again. I see a lot of biblical examples about ask and keep asking. And again and again. Was it Luke 18:1? It was Luke 18:1. Yes. 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 Mm. Mm-hmm. Is it wrong? I don't see any reason why it would be wrong. Right. Mm. We're going to have to come back to that. And that's a good area of discussion. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. But I would like to say there is a very real difference between somebody teaching people to pray and never bring it up again, because if you just visualize the thing, versus somebody saying, well, I prayed about it and left it to God, and he'll take care of it. I mean, I think we've all seen examples of that. What comes to my mind is there was a certain missionary who was teaching some people who had never heard about Jesus before about healing. And so they went and they asked God to heal, and they moved on with their life, and God did heal, and they just moved on with their life. And he said, well, why didn't you come back and tell me? And they said, well, doesn't he always do this? And the missionary said, well, no, he doesn't always do that, and either way, I'd like to know, you know. So, I mean, yeah, I we'll have to come back to that. I think that's something I'm going to have to spend some time thinking about. But there is a very real difference between somebody instructing only pray one time and then visualize to make it happen versus praying, trusting God, leaving it at his feet, and you're not going to, like, go and teach everybody else, stop praying about what you're praying. Like, see what I mean? I think those are two different issues. But I would be interested in, I never really gave it much thought. Yeah, that's true. And sometimes you're in the battlefield on that request. Yeah. 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 What I hate is when I'm real concerned about something and I'm praying, and then I forget about it, but God doesn't, so he answers the prayer and does whatever it does. And then I move on with my life, and then years later I look back and I think, oh, I was a spoiled brat in that story. Because you don't even realize, and you just moved on with your life like it didn't even matter. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Spencer, go ahead. Is what involved with Buddhism? You know, when you look at religions, there's sometimes similarities that crop up between them. Voodoo, I guess you could say voodoo is very strongly related with witchcraft. Wiccan is a religion. We're going to have to come back to that too, because I'm going to have to actually look up to see what the technical classification is. But voodoo is related to witchcraft. Excuse me. But it is. No. This is true. This is true. Any other questions or comments? No? Going twice and sold. Okay, so just to summarize, witches might use tools but don't have to, and spells are not like you see them on TV. Next week we'll look at witchcraft, numbers 7 through 10, so it's on the list of 10 things. And then after that, the week after that, we'll look at Wiccanism. Let's see. Yeah. So there will be another men's breakfast on August 9th. That's 2 weeks before the 100-year anniversary. And then our 100-year anniversary is coming up on the 24th of August. We're going to have Pastor Blair Overturf. Pastor Mike Moss is giving me, he could not make it, but he is giving me a thing for me to read to the church. And then Kathy Settle's going to be here. I think that's about it. So looking forward to a good time there. And, yeah, hope to see you guys there. And I think that's about it. Yeah, so can I have someone close us in prayer? Terry, was that you? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Laura, would you close us in prayer, please? Do you mind or no? I mean, if you mind, we don't have to. Okay, well, you guys have a great rest of your night. Stay out of trouble. Don't do anything stupid.